Danielle DiMartino Booth joins us, CEO and Chief Strategist at QI Research, on the line. Danielle, dollar's moving higher after this, despite no hike, of course. To me, it looks like that's the market saying maybe we still will get one this year. Do you agree or disagree?
Oh, I would have to agree with that assessment. And it was interesting to hear how Powell reacted when he was pointedly asked about whether or not a soft landing was his base case. He said, no. So I think he alone, and probably with some of the hawks on the committee, believes that not enough damage has been done yet to achieve his 2% inflation mandate.
So anyone who is doubting that they're actually serious about that, this is maybe kind of the week where they're telling us, look, we are serious about it, like we're actually going to get down there.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly the attitude that we saw at the podium. And, of course, now we have the dot plot being further apart than it was the last time that they put out a dot plot. So you see that there's a little bit more dissension there on the committee. But if you're talking about Jay Powell himself, he's a man on a mission, and he remains on that mission.
Okay, when you look at the dot plot, break it down for us right now, because for this year, it seems like consensus is coming together a little bit. But are you talking about basically next year where there's a lot of variance?
There's a ton of variance, and we effectively just saw 2 rate cuts over the next 2 years come out of the dot plot. So that is, less easing equals more tightening, at least in my mind, and they increase their assessment of the economy as well. So there are a lot of things to me that dictate that policy is on a firmer path than what the market was anticipating, even though the market was saying the whole time, hawkish pause, hawkish pause. I think this is a little bit more hawkish than even the market was anticipating.
Okay. I mean, I guess when there is still a lot of pricing of cuts happening by the market, anything other than saying we're going to cut is kind of hawkish at this point?
Well, yes. I think anything other than just a bold, outright statement. But, of course, he did use the word carefully several times, and he basically said if the facts change, so will we. And I think that that's kind of the glass is half full interpretation that the market is taking with it, in addition to all of the things that we know are happening at one time in the economy, whether you're talking about the UAW on strike or the potential for a government shutdown or student loans. I mean, there's a laundry list right now. And he basically said, we're trying to game all of those variables, which increases uncertainty, but ... we're still getting to that 2% target. So.
Yeah, and right now, of course, as our previous guest pointed out, we're a good ways away from that for the Fed's preferred metric. But the economy so far has handled some pretty serious tightening over the past 12 months with a surprising degree of grace. What do you see as the odds we can continue to do that? I mean, it looks like the Fed might actually get to a point where they revise down on employment expectations, which is kind of crazy to think about after last year's hiking regime.
It is kind of crazy to think about it that way, but yet, we have seen an extraordinary amount of fiscal stimulus. If you look at deficit spending, it kind of came down really hard after COVID, and it looks like a hockey stick going on its way back up. The question going forward, though, that's what markets care about, their forward-looking mechanism, is there any marginal fiscal relief coming towards the U.S. consumer to support consumption? The answer right now is no, not until after the election. So that gives us a pretty good calendar, a kind of timeline to work from. What do you think the number one data point is, Danielle? I mean, is it just basically jobs? Is it purely employment? Well, yeah, Jay Powell mentioned several times the consumer continues to consume. And I think that is their focal point because, of course, 70% of the U.S. economy is consumption. So the labor market remains tight. I mean, he used that word over again. It's coming into better balance. But according to him, as long as we keep spending money, then the Fed can keep tightening policy. And that really is where he focused his comments, in addition to saying, by the way, we're going to continue to significantly, quote unquote, significantly reduce the size of the Fed's balance sheet. So quantitative tightening isn't even up for discussion.
Yeah, good observation on his consumer commentary. Danielle, one point, since we were talking history with our last guest, you've got some history as well in your writing. I'm looking at your notes that two successive pauses have typically ended the rate hike cycle. So I guess that puts some pressure on November.
That does indeed. It does put the pressure on November. If you look back historically, if the Fed goes 2 meetings, that means that they're done. That means that they're finished. Jay Powell has a little bit of a rough track record with rate hikes in December. He remembers back to 2018. Yes, I would think that the onus right now is going to be, once we get Fed speakers speaking again tomorrow, now the blackout's over, I think that you're going to be hearing a lot of people guide markets towards that November date. And there's not a lot of time or data between now and then, by the way.
Yeah, very true. Great conversation, Danielle. Thanks for jumping on for us. Absolutely. Danielle DiMartino Booth, QI Research.